The conference in Copenhagen from day one has been characterized by a lack of transparency. It's been characterized by a lot of arm twisting of the developing nations by the rich nations. It has been 2 weeks of lack of ambition by the rich nations, but they keep on talking about ambitious emissions cut. There's been no indication of any form of ambition at all. And so it's been 2 weeks of frustrating negotiations or lack of negotiations. And at the end of the day, nobody is sure there can be any good thing at the end of the tunnel. And so it's a very sad day, especially for poor countries, because they had hoped that the world, having understood the seriousness, severity of climate change, would do something. But it does appear that the lessons have not been learned.
Did anybody gain anything from this conference then?
I think it's been, the only person who would have gained anything would be President Obama, where he could say that he came and had a deal with the four nations. Otherwise, I think everybody is going home with empty hands, except something else happens later on this morning.
What do you think could happen?
There's a possibility that the delegates may begin to negotiate seriously, if they've listened to the people. But you know, there's little chance, but it could happen, that they could change the tone of the negotiation and come out with something that is close to what may begin to attempt to tackle climate change.
When did you feel that this conference would be a climate fiasco? Already in the beginning or just now in the end?
Well, actually, we came with some kind of hope. This is why there's a very heavy civil society presence in this conference. Thousands of people. On the 12th of December, you had over 100,000 people marching in the cold through Copenhagen, so that people had hope that the leaders would listen. But it turned out that our leaders only listen to themselves. They don't even listen to each other. This is a tragedy of leadership in the world today.
Do you think South Africa is a sellout?
You know, we've not really heard them say what they've done, but they've been named amongst the nations that have endorsed Obama's plan. I think it's because South Africa is a big emitter, and I would not understand why they should jump onto the bandwagon. It's a big disappointment for South Africa to take this stand.
What about Ethiopia and their presence in this meeting?
I think the Ethiopian presidency even before he came here, has shown that he's out of touch with the reality of the impacts of climate change. And that's surprising, because Ethiopia is one of the most impacted nations on earth. And any increase in temperature will impact Ethiopia even more than many other countries. It's a problem of governance and politicians who are out of touch with reality.
What is your view about Brazil in this whole conference, the role of Brazil?
You know, when Lula spoke this morning, he was very inspiring. He said Brazil did not come to beg. Brazil was ready to put forward its funds to tackle climate impacts in Brazil and also possibly to help other developing countries. And so for them to go out and endorse Obama's deal, it makes it a bit difficult to reconcile the two positions. Perhaps, as Lula said, maybe he was tired, because he said he had never seen a president stay up for so many hours negotiating what negotiators should have done. So I guess that may have had an impact.
How can all these nations come together in the future, going forward, in a way that honors the science and in a way that respects each other, in a way that demonstrates good faith efforts at fighting climate change? I
think this is the big challenge of the United Nations system, because it ought to be a democratic space where nations have equal power. You know, of course, you know that they have Security Council where a few nations have veto power. So the inequality in the system is long-standing. But this is what needs to be overcome. The United Nations space needs to be democratized. There has to be coherence, there has to be openness, there has to be willingness of the rich nations to open up space for everyone to act in the interest of humanity. And it's a responsibility for us, those of us in the civil society movement, to put more pressure on these politicians and decision makers to wake up to the realization that the way to the future would not be based on competition. It's got to be solidarity.
There was speculation or actually talks throughout this conference that the industrialized and rich countries are dealing with climate change as if it is an abstract term. Do you think what has transpired this evening just reaffirms that?
Exactly. More of, the moment the United States pushed the market mechanism into Kyoto Protocol, it was already a signal that we're not going to really have direct action that will cut emissions. And today, throughout 2 weeks, the most developed discussion has been on the red track, on market mechanisms. Even on the American deal, the market mechanism is given prominence there. Market mechanism to solve climate change is just an excuse for people to speculate on the carbon market, make some money, and then leave the cutting of emissions undone. Because you can't offset carbon emission when you're polluting, and you're getting paid for polluting more or less.
You were kicked out of the conference earlier this week. You managed to get back in, I guess, these past couple of days. I wonder how
I was kicked out for 2 days. I only managed to come back today.
Okay. How did you get back in?
Unfortunately.
And why were you kicked out?
I would have preferred to. Well, I think, many civil society groups were not allowed in from Wednesday. But what happened to us that we, in Friends of the International, we had 90 slots because we came with a delegation of 450 activists. We were given 90 slots, which was a cut down, and 90 of us came, and not one person was allowed in. The following day, we were given 4 slots. We came, only 2 people were allowed in. Only today, 4 of us were allowed in. It shows a lack of willingness by the UN system to listen to the voice of the people. You see banners everywhere, raise your voice, but